Tonight, the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft, and don't count out the Green Bay Packers making a pick.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. It's final draft time, which means it is final mock time. It means I'm going to tell you what I think will ultimately happen for the Packers in this draft, and my hope is to pick a couple players correct. That is my goal. I said earlier in the week, I think we already know who they're going to pick, or at least who they want to pick. Doesn't mean they're going to have a chance. Certainly not at all of them. But what I've been thinking through this whole process is they're not going to pick at 52. I don't think the Packers are going to pick at 52 with one exception, and we'll talk about it today. If a bunch of offensive tackles go, and I'd take the over. If a bunch of receivers go, and I'd take the over. If a bunch of pass rushers go, and I'd take the over. We know there's only going to be one quarterback. It's a weak defensive tackle class. There may be one, possibly two taken. We could see 8, 9, 10 offensive linemen go. We could see 6, 7, 8 pass rushers and receivers go each. Well, that's like almost the whole first round already. So, and there are some linebackers who could sneak in. You've got, well, not sneak in the case of Sonny Styles, but if it's Jacob Rodriguez, he could sneak into the first round. We know Caleb Downs is going to go in the first round. We know Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is going to get in. We know Dylan Thieneman is going to get in. So, I mean, all of a sudden, maybe the corners get pushed down. What if the Packers are sitting there and they're getting to pick 31? The Seahawks have made it clear. We want to move out of here. Could the Packers put together a package to move up for, let's say, Chris Johnson? 52 plus 84, plus you could throw in a 5th rounder in this draft, or you could trade your future 4th knowing you're going to get comp picks next year. Now, a word on the comp pick part of this. You say, why don't you just trade the comp picks? Well, you can't. You can't trade the comp picks because the comp picks don't exist yet. Okay? So you have your pick, but then you have these picks that you know are coming, but they don't happen yet. The comp picks are not awarded until a year from now. Well, 10 months from now. So they don't exist yet. You cannot trade something that does not exist. So you could trade your 4th, knowing you're going to get 2 more, being pretty sure you're going to get 2 more. Or you could trade the extra 5th that you got. And 1/4, remember, this year or next year is worth about the same as a 5th this year. In this case, I probably would just want to trade 153, but I might need that. So let's get to that part of this, because we're gonna use those picks later, I promise. And if you look at like the Rich Hill trade chart, that's right in that range, 33, 32. And the Seahawks desperately want to move back. They do not have very many picks in this draft. And the Packers, I will make one prediction. Forget all the players, forget everything else. They will trade up at least once, if not twice, with future draft capital in this draft. Because they cannot spend all of those compensatory picks next year. They will not have the roster spots for all of those guys. Now, they could use them next year to move up too. But in a draft like this, where the gap between the top players and everyone else, if the Packers view Chris Johnson like I view Chris Johnson, as a borderline top 10, top 15 kind of player, The guy that they could get at 52 or even like 47 or 43 if they traded up with a Dolphin, something like that. I think there's a material gap between the quality of the player you'd get there and the quality you're getting there. So this is the kind of trade up you go for. Remember, we talked about the hit rate at corner, premium position. It is a wild position of need. You're getting a premium athlete. You're getting a premium person. And the Packers have done a lot of work with Chris Johnson. Did not bring him in for an official visit, but had multiple, according to what I've been told, multiple offseason, pre-draft digital meetings with him. They really, really like him. Colton Hood could be another option. We'll talk about Jermon McCoy in a second. So let's say they do that. Well, now you don't have 52 and 84 to play with. You still need a defensive tackle. You still need some offensive line depth. You still probably need a receiver, though. If the Packers want to extend Jaden Reed, we've heard whispers that that's something that they're at least considering. Maybe the board falling this way would help them consider it. And at 120, you grab Caleb Proctor, the defensive tackle from Southeast Louisiana. Amazing. Love that. Now, Brian Gutekunst said the Packers want to get bodies at corner. Going up for Chris Johnson, I think, would be worth 2 corners because you're much more sure he's going to come in and play. And then if you need to sign, a camp body or someone like that, just some depth, because they'd have 4 NFL corners. That's more than most teams have. And Chris Johnson would compete to start right away. And maybe you take someone on day 3 and go from there. I don't think you have to. And then let's say at 153, that's the pick you got from the Eagles. You take someone like Jagger Burton. His name is going to come up more than once. I think, in fact, in every scenario we put together, his name is going to come up. At 160, maybe you take Jeff Caldwell, the receiver from Cincinnati, who's like the crazy all-time RAS guy, as just a shot in the dark. And that's one of those, hey, you don't need a receiver, but let's take a guy with freaky upside. And I know he's older and was never super productive, but this is your Jeff Janis. You got to end 160. Like, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a late 5th round pick. Not that big a deal. Now, you got Dontavian Wicks for a 5th round pick, but then you already recouped that pick. You got to take Jagger Burton, who has a chance to be your starting center in a year if you need him to be, can be a backup interior offensive lineman. He played guard and center in college. The Packers had a Zoom meeting with him. So remember, I think that we're going to see the reason that there's going to be a lot of repeat names when we go through. There's 3 different scenarios we're going to go through. I think that you're going to see some similar names because at the end of the draft, we're just taking dart throws here. And so it's like, okay, 201, Kalen Black. Yep, they had a visit. Running back from Indiana. There's another running back I think they really like. They really, really like. They've done a lot of work on, who would provide an explosive element to this offense. We'll talk about him in a minute. And then I have Jordan Vandenberg, the defensive tackle from Georgia Tech at 236. And I do think they're going to take a quarterback in this draft. I've been told Baron Morton, who they had a visit with from Texas Tech, who checks the boxes. The Jason Hirschhorn hunting for Hasselbeck boxes, he checks them. So you come out of the draft with a potential star corner, one of my favorite players in the draft in Caleb Proctor, and then a bunch of guys the Packers have had interest in, plus Jeff Caldwell. Now this gets interesting if a certain cornerback with some injury question marks fell. My brain is so fried, guys. I'm so ready for the draft to be here. We talked about the one pick at 52 that I think makes sense. What kind of ripple effects does that have on the draft? Let's look at it. Let's talk about it. We'll do that next. The NBA playoffs are here where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club for ad-free episodes and access to the group chat with me and Locked On Packers listeners. Tap the link in the show notes or go to lockedonpackers.supercast.com for more. So what if Jermod McCoy falls all the way to 52? Does he get the same sort of benefit of the doubt that Chris Johnson does? Do they need to add additional bodies if he's there? Let's assume, for sake of argument, he's there. And let's assume, for sake of argument, the Packers are comfortable with the medicals. My understanding is there are some teams that are and some teams that aren't. Are the Packers? I don't know. But let's say they are. I think at this point, the talent, absolutely worth the risk. But I do think you have to build in an insurance policy. I think you have to look at a corner on day 3. And so in this scenario, I think Charles Demings at 153, right in line with where he is on the consensus board, makes a lot of sense. Now, I think he's going to go earlier than this. I think 6 foot, 190 plus pound corners that run in the low 4.4s and are as athletic as he is, even if he played at Stephen F. Austin, are going to go earlier in the draft. But this is a weird draft. So I wanted to use the consensus board just for consistency's sake. That's where he is at 154. So if you get Jermod McCoy, now you have a little bit of fun you can have. You have something to play with here. Now, remember, I said I think they're going to use these picks to move up for a certain player. I think it makes a ton of sense to move up from 120 into the early 100s to grab another player that you have a top 100 grade on, especially if it's a corner. Well, if you got Jermod McCoy, do you need to do that? Maybe you don't. Now, I mentioned Mike Washington that the Packers really, really like. In this scenario, I think they take him at 84 because there is a precipitous drop-off after him to everyone else. And there was a really interesting conversation, I know it made the rounds on the Athletic Football Show with Bill Barnwell and Robert Mays, and they talked about running back value. And the thing about running back value is the first 5 yards is the offensive line. There's only so much a running back can do early on. But after that, explosive plays are almost all the running back. And when you're 6 feet, 225 pounds, and you run in the 4.3s, you can create explosive plays. The Packers desperately need explosive plays. So they need to run block better. That's the start. But on those plays where they, if you perfectly block a run for Chris Brooks, he's going to pick up 8, 10, 12 yards. You perfectly block a run, which might only happen 2-3 times a game. But if you perfectly block a run for Mike Washington Jr., it can be 70 yards out the gate. And I think the Packers see that potential and they go, we don't have anyone in our offense that can do that. And when teams are playing 2 high safeties, we have to be able to do that. And so here's the pathway. And there isn't, outside of Jeremiah Love, there is, I don't think, another running back in this draft that offers you that sort of explosive potential. So I can see the Packers saying, this guy is too good to pass up, and we need someone like this in our offense. Now the trade up. Now we get to have fun. So Jermod McCoy is the pick. Do you move up for another one of those corners? Or do you leave well enough alone? Do you add maybe another toy here for Jordan Love? What if you take 120 and you throw in just one future first? One future fourth. Or let's say you use 153, which is the extra pick that you got from Philly, and a future fourth. You could get back into the 3rd round. Now, I don't know that you need to do that, but if you love somebody, I think it's worth it. And you already struck gold with Jermod McCoy. So what if you took, it doesn't matter here because this is not my official prediction, but let's say you took a future fourth from 120, you go up to say 104 because Bryce Lance is still there. Or maybe you use both future fourths and you go up to 98 because Bryce Lance is still there. It's irrelevant for this exercise. But so now you've added Jermod McCoy, Mike Washington, and Bryce Lance. That's good business. That's really good business. Now, you still haven't solved this defensive tackle issue. And there's a couple names in this range that I think make sense. Now, Caleb Proctor at 120 is probably more reasonable than where I ultimately have him. But again, I'm using the final mock here. And I'd really like Caleb Proctor to be a Packer, but I may be wish casting a little bit with this. I think drafting Jerron McCoy does not insulate you against having to draft another corner. So Charles Demings from Stephen F. Austin at 153 is the pick. Again, I think he's probably going to go sooner than that, but this is just an exercise we're playing out. And then you add in, you don't have to draft Caleb Black anymore at 201. I have Mason Rager here from the University of Wisconsin at Madison. Have you ever heard of it? And then the same Jagger Burton, Jordan Vandenberg, doesn't matter. It's going to be about the same. That's an interesting one, and I think it gives you a lot of options. Those middle round picks you can get a little crazy with. This trade up from 120. If there is one thing that like makes sense to me in all of this with those future picks, that's where they have the most value. Like that makes sense to get a player that you probably have a top 100 grade on, and the draft is really only 4 rounds long, and you've got this extra fifth that you could also use instead. You could move up multiple times on day 3. And if I were the Packers, that's what I would be trying to do. My goal in all of this would be to move back from 52 and add a day 3 pick, and then use my day 3 picks as ammunition to move around, move up, and find more guys in that cluster between, 85 and 135. Now, when I do my final prediction mock, that's what it's going to look like. You know that feeling around dinner time when you're starving, maybe a little hangry, and somehow there's nothing in the fridge? That's why Home Chef is the easiest way to have real balanced meals ready to go without the stress. Home Chef makes cooking simple. You get fresh ingredients delivered right to your door, easy to follow recipes, and meals that actually taste great. No long shopping lists, no complicated prep, and best of all, easy cleanup. There are over 30 meals to choose from every week, so you're not stuck eating the same thing over and over. And honestly, the meals feel restaurant quality. It's like having a personal chef without the cost. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off and free shipping on your first box plus free dessert for life. Go to homechef.com/lockedonnfl. That's homechef.com/lockedonnfl for 50% off your first box and free dessert for life. Homechef.com/lockedonnfl. Must be an active subscriber to get that free dessert. The NFL draft is here, where preparation meets opportunity, and every decision matters. It's all about being ready when the moment comes. And that same mindset applies off the field too. That's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette offers treatments designed to help you feel ready and confident when it matters the most. Their top option, Rougiette Ready, is a mint that dissolves under your tongue with clinically proven ingredients. It works quickly, often in about 15 minutes, and can last up to 36 hours. Oh yeah. And they also offer Go Long, designed to help with both performance and control. It's all about showing up at your best whenever that moment is. Head to Rougiette.com/lockedonnNFL to get 15% off your ED treatment. That's RUGIET.com/lockedonnNFL for 15% off. Rougiette Performance Medicine for Men. All right, here we go. The official Locked On Packers mock draft. And we're trading down. I am the GM. I am Brian Gutekunst. And I think they're going to trade back. I think they're going to try and trade up. I think they're going to look at the cost and they're going to go, this doesn't make sense. And they're going to move down. The trade that I have gone with here, the 49ers have a preposterous 4 fourth-round picks. So they take one of them. In this case, 138. Now, I would ask for 127 and settle for 133. Okay? But it doesn't matter. 133, 138. You'll see why it doesn't matter in a second. I'm going to move down to 59, which is where the 49ers pick. So I move down 7 spots. Excuse me. I'm going to move down to 58. I'm going to move down 6 spots. And 59 was the last mock we did. And I'm going to take Ted Hurst. I think they're going to take a receiver. Remember, he was a visit. They also visited with Chris Brazzell. I think they want to take a receiver early. And after the third round, there are just not going to be good options. I could also see at 59, Malik Muhammad. That's another name I think that we need to keep an eye on. I think Julian Neal is a name to keep an eye on. I think Dalen Everett is a name to keep an eye on. Certainly, if they move down, they could move down and pick a corner. But the value at corner comes later. The value at receiver is right now. And there's a big drop off. If they don't get a corner at 52, they're probably not going to get a receiver because they have to take those corners in rounds 3 and rounds 4 or rounds 3 and rounds 5. The receivers are going to be gone by the time that they pick, in all likelihood. Now, they could move up like we did with our last one, but I've got something else planned. At 84, I think this could be Julian Neal. I think this could be Malik Muhammad. I went with Dalen Everett. The tiebreaker went to Georgia, and it went to the elite speed athlete. 4.38 at over 6 feet, 196 pounds. Can play man, can play zone. Walked onto the field in Athens and contributed to some of the best defenses in college football. He just has Packers type written all over him. Now, this is a little early based on the consensus board. Julian Neal is the higher graded player on the consensus board. The Packers care not for consensus boards. However, this is where the trade-up happens. I think the Packers then take 120. They pair one of those picks, and they move up to, let's call it 104. And they get Julian Neal. So they go Ted Hurst, Dalen Everett, Julian Neal. Receiver, corner. I love it. I love it. And these are all like names to watch. But like Julian Neal is not just a pet project of mine, although I really like him and I would have taken him at 59, frankly. Like I would have been fine with that. I would have taken Ted Hurst over Julian Neal, but then I would have taken Julian Neal at 84. I would have moved up if I had to, if I thought I had to. I think he's that good. But I think the Packers like him too. And now I really want a defensive tackle. I really want Caleb Proctor. I don't have to be that aggressive for these nose tackles. Like I think that someone like Jordan Vandenberg is going to be available to the Packers later. And I think that Caleb Proctor, a Packers visit, again, not just a pet project of mine. It just so happens this year that three of my pet projects, my pet cats, are Packers visits. And you could probably add like Jagger Burton and Jordan Vandenberg, who I really like as well. They're Packers visits. And so it kind of works out for me this year. It reminds me a little bit of 2022 when they drafted a lot of the players I like. Reminds me a little bit of 2024 when they drafted a lot of players that I like. So you can now take 138, package it with 153, which is that extra Eagles pick, and that would get you to 115. I think the Packers, after trading back, you trade back to get extra picks, and now you trade back up. This is something Brian Gutekunst has done throughout his career. Trade back. Oh, now we're going to come back up and get the guy we really want. So you are able to move up into 115 because I don't think Caleb Proctor is going to last much past 100, and it wouldn't surprise me if he goes in the top 100. This is still, by the way, 20 spots higher than he is projected to go by consensus. So this is a terrific move for Green Bay to get a penetrating 3 technique, someone who fits their athletic models, someone who they visited with, someone who I think Jonathan Gannon is going to see and go, that's Milton Williams. And they're going to be off and running. So now you've used up your extra trade back pick and you used up your extra Dontavian Wicks pick. So now you're just going to go down the list. Some of the guys that we've talked about, Jagger Burton, who's going to be, center guard, not a center only, someone they had a Zoom visit with. Athletic profile fits. He's a badass. I really like him. And I think that he could come in and compete. Maybe not to start right away, but then he immediately becomes your best swing interior offensive lineman, better than Jacob Monk, better than Jonathan Jennings. Like I don't think that's even particularly close. Kalen Black is not the explosive runner that Michael Washington is, but I think like overall complete running back vision and everything, I think you can make the case that like He has a more complete skill set. I think Mike Washington is clearly a better prospect. Like clearly a better prospect. Let me be crystal clear about that part. But in terms of being a more complete player, I think you can make the case that Black is just the more well-rounded running back. Mike Washington just happens to be really super fast. He's got good hands. He can help you in the passing game. He's big. He runs physically. There's some vision issues at times, but the Packers offensive line is not good enough for that to matter. Like if it's clean, it's clean, and he's going to hit it hard, and he can hit it big time. At 236, I mentioned Jordan Vandenberg. You double up at defensive tackle. You double up at corner. Those are positions of need. You get your big swing at receiver. And then Baron Morton, the quarterback from Texas Tech. Don't be surprised if Taylon Green is a pick on day 3 if they end up getting some extra picks. Like maybe if they keep 153 and they could pick Caleb Proctor at 120. But remember, we did a lot of machinations to get where we wanted to get to here. We used 120 to get up to 104. And then we used 138, which was my extra pick, to get up to 115. There will be a quiz later. Are you following all of this? Wake up. There will be a quiz. No, there will not be a quiz. And so this makes sense to me. They need a receiver. And if you're going to get a receiver, you got to get one early. They need a cornerback. This middle rounds 3 through 5, that's where you get them. And it would not be difficult at all. You use the future pick to get from 120 into the low 100s. And right now, if you look in the consensus board, I mean, this is money, you guys. At 100 on the consensus board, Julian Neal. At 102 on the consensus board, Devin Moore. At 103 on the consensus board, Dalen Everett. At 106 on the consensus board, Will Lee III. And I know he was the only one that they had a visit with, but I think that was more exclusionary. Like, are we sure we don't want to draft? Like, we like this guy, let's bring him in. Are we sure we don't want to draft him? He might not be fast enough. I don't know. And he doesn't tackle. That's the problem. Is he's not just that he's not fast enough. He doesn't tackle. So you bring him in and you go, hey, buddy, why don't you tackle? You know who tackles? Julian Neal. You know who tackles? Dalen Everett. They need 2 guys to come in and set a tone. 2 guys in the SEC who've seen the best receivers. Now you've got 2 guys who can come in to compete to start for you right away. Right away if you need them to. And also, Julian Neal, some people want to convert him to safety. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But if Benjamin St-Juste and Dalen Everett pop, then in a year or 2, you could let Xavier McKinney go and give Julian Neal a shot at safety. Or let him be a nickel player. Very versatile piece for you. You guys know I think Caleb Proctor is a no-brainer, no doubt Packers type. I think Jagger Burton is a no doubt, no-brainer Packers type. Jordan Vandenberg, same deal. Baron Morton, we know they like them. They had him in for a visit. They want to take a quarterback in this draft. He's the one I picked. So that's the mock. If I get 3 or 4 players right, I will be happy, but I will also be shocked if I don't get 3 or 4 players right in that one. I'm pretty. This is one of those years I feel pretty good about the pool of players from which the Packers are drawing in all of this. We're going to be live after round 1. We're going to be live after round 2, and then a round table live on Saturday to discuss, break it all down, get through everything, and just hang out and talk shop about the Green Bay Packers. Subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Follow me on socials, wherever you happen to be on socials. Join the Everydayer Club, lockedonpackers.supercast.com. Get ad-free episodes of Locked On Packers, plus join the group chat. We're here for you, always. Subscribe on YouTube when we go live. We're here for you to stay locked on Packers.